Hi, I'm Stuart Bull and welcome to this lesson on major scale theory. Okay, so what is the major scale? Well, if you've ever seen The Sound of Music and you know the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that is the major scale. We hear it in music all the time. And I'm just going to lay the notes out for you. We're going to do this in C, and what I'm going to do is play it on one string, and that will become apparent. The good reason for that will become apparent shortly. So it's going to sound like this. So it's a 7-note scale, and the 8th note is the octave of that scale, which means it's the same note, but it's an octave higher. So the scale actually has 7 notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, and I think you probably can recognize that sound. And each of these notes in the scale have numbers. So we just number them sequentially: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the root, which is 1 again. Okay, so why do we have these numbers? Well, the main reason is because of the way that chords are made up. Now, chords are made up from scales, or that is one way of looking at it. And each scale, or in this case, the major scale, it has 7 chords. And we're just going to deal with triads in this lesson. And a triad is a 3-note chord. And every note of the scale has a triad. So we have a C triad, a D triad, an E triad, an F triad, a G triad, an A triad, a B triad, and then we would eventually arrive back at C. So these triads are made up from an order of notes that appear within this scale. And that order of notes are root, third, and fifth. Okay, so a very, very simple example would be, here's the root, which is number 1. So we want the third, so we're going to skip over the second note and go to the third. So now we have the root and the third. Now we want to go to the fifth. Root, skip over the second, third, skip over the fourth, fifth. So now we have number 1, number 3, and number 5 of the scale, or root, third, and fifth. So now we can't play a chord like that. The notes have to be on different strings. So it depends on how you want to arrange those notes. Now we know we need the root, the third, and the fifth. And all we have to do is find out what those notes are. Well, okay, the root is C, the third is E, and the fifth is G. So a very simple way of doing that is saying, well, here's a C. Okay, here's a G. So, excuse me, here's a G. I'll do it again on the next string. Okay, so we have our root and our fifth. Now, just because of the way the guitar's laid out, we have another root here, but that's fine. And now we have a third here, which is E. And then we have a simple bar chord. And it's a triad. Now, you might be saying, well, okay, that's got 4 notes in it, but it's got the same note twice, okay? 2 C's. It's actually only got 3 notes, which are the root, the third, which is here, on the 5th fret B string, and it's got the 5th, which is the G. Now, if we took a typical campfire chord being a C, you might say, hey, that's got 5 notes in it. How can that be a triad? Well, let's look. We've got the root being C, we've got the third being E, and we've got the G being the 5th. So we've got root, third, 5th. But it's quite convenient that we have another C sitting here at the 1st fret B string, and then we have the third being the open E. So, you know, it would seem silly not to use those notes. and that is a C major triad. Now, why is it major? Okay, well the reason it's major is because of the distance between the first note being the root C and the third. Now you can hear that's quite a happy sort of major sound. Kind of sounds happy and nice, and that's why it's major. But technically, if we skip over, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4 frets. That means that is a major third. And it's that third that makes it C major. So if you've ever wondered, like, why is this called major instead of minor? It's because of that third. And then if we look at the fifth, okay, it's up here, and then we can skip over the frets. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is the distance between the root and the fifth. And those three notes go up to make a C major. Okay, so if we go to the next note in the scale, it's going to be D, okay? So we use the same principle of root, third and fifth to get our chord. And so what do? We just count up exactly the same notes. We don't change the notes. So we go 1, 2, 3. So now we have what's known as a minor third, because you'll notice the distance between this root and this third is 1 fret less than the distance between this root and this third. And it gives it a different sound, which we'll get to in a minute. So basically we go 1, 2, 3, that gives us our third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that gives us our fifth. And hopefully you'll notice that you've got that same distance between the D and the A, in this case the root and the fifth, as we did between the C and the G, being the root and the fifth. But now we've got root, minor third, fifth. Okay, so let's see where we can put that. We need to have a D, we need to have an F, and we need to have an A. Now we could do a regular bar chord. There's a D, there's an F, 6th fret on the B string, there's another D, and there's an A, and then we get our D minor chord. And you can hear that's got that minor sound. Again, we could play it down here. And it's again got 4 notes in it. But as you can see, you've got the D. Okay, you've got the A being the fifth, you've got the D again being the root, and the F that's the third. So that takes care of the D minor chord. Okay, so we move up to the next note in the scale, which is an E note. And we use exactly the same principle. We go 1, 2, 3, and you can see that that gap, the distance between that root and that third, okay, is the same between the D and the F for the D minor, and that's going to give us a minor third again. 1, 2, 3. So just to recap, we have 4 frets for a major third, 3 for a minor third, but you can see that distance. Okay, and then we're going to use a fifth again for this. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and you can see that the distance between this E and the fifth is the same as the distance between the D and its fifth being A, and C and its fifth being G. Okay, so we have the root, the third, and the fifth. And basically, if we use the bar chord theory as we did before, there's a root, there's a fifth, there's the root again, here is the minor third, which is G, and there we have once again the fifth. And that will give us an E minor chord. We can play that down here. And again, you might say, well, that's got 6 notes in it, but it's just repeated notes. Here's the root, here is the fifth, there's the root again, open G is the third, fifth is the open B, and the root is the open E. So you can start to see how this is coming together. Next chord in the scale is an F, okay? And we do exactly the same as we did before. We go up the scale, 1, 2, 3. We can now see that this is back to being a major third again. So F has a major third. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we can see that distance there is the same as the distance between C and its major third. Now we find the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and we can see we have root, third, and fifth. And it's starting to get easier now. So now we can see here is the root, here's the fifth, here's the root again, and here is the major third. And again, if we come down here and play a typical F, again we can see we have the root, we have the third, we have the fifth, and then we have the root again. Now we come up to the next position, and you can see 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have the root, and we have that gap of 4 frets again, same as we did for C, same as we did for F. So that means we have a G major chord. We try to find the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that gives us the fifth, so we have another major triad. And you already know how to make this up. And if you take this typical G, you'll see that you have the root, the third, you have the fifth, the root again, you have the fifth again, and the root again. Okay, so you can see how having more notes still makes it work. Now we go to the next chord, which is going to be A minor. And we get to that because we go 1, 2, 3, and we can see the distance between that root and that third is 3 frets, same as it was for E minor, same as it was for D minor. Okay, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is E. And we can see that we have a minor chord because we have a minor third, and that's going to go A, C is going to be the minor third, and E is going to be the fifth. And you can play this chord up here. I probably wouldn't normally, but just to show you. It's a little bit tough to play it up there for my big hands. But if we play it down here, you can see that you have the root being A. You can see you have E being the fifth. We have the root again. And then we have the third, which is the first fret B string. And that open E will give you the fifth again. Okay, now we're looking at the final chord, which starts on the note of B. Now just imagine that we were up here, but I'm just going to do it down here because it's a little bit easier to see and a little bit easier to play. If we find our third, 1, 2, 3, we can see that distance is a minor third. Same as it is for D, same as it is for E, same as it is for A minor. So it's got a minor third because of that 3 fret gap. Okay, so now we've got to find the fifth, always staying within the scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the fifth of this chord is F, but there's something a little bit different here. If you noticed, all the other chords from their root to their fifth, and I'll just do the example from C to G, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have to pass over 7 frets to get from this root of C to the fifth. And that's the same with all the chords except this one chord. It's called the 7 chord because it's the 7th note and 7th chord in the scale. If we count up again to get the fifth, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but let's count the frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 frets instead of 7, okay? And this is known as a flattened fifth. And within the major scale, this is the only chord that has a flattened fifth. Every other chord has what's known as a perfect fifth, which is that 7-fret gap that we looked at, and this B chord has a flattened fifth. So there's the root. A regular fifth would be here, but this one has what's known as a flattened fifth, and you may recognize that sound right there. That's the root to the fifth. And then if we were to add the D in, you would get this sound. So it's B minor with a flattened fifth, and there's some other places that we could play that. This is a chord that we should probably look at in more depth in a separate lesson, but basically it is B minor and it's got a flattened fifth, and that's what the flattened fifth sounds like. And like I say, you can put that D in there if you want to hear the whole thing. But it's not a big campfire chord. You won't hear somebody strumming away on that. It does have other uses, but we'll talk about those in other lessons. But for this particular lesson, pay attention to the C, the D minor, the E minor, the F, the G, and the A minor. And generally, if somebody says C, that means major. And if they say A minor, or they want the chord to be minor, they will specify minor. Some people might say C major or F major, but if I say C, F, and G, I mean C major, F major, and G major. If I say A minor, D minor, and E minor, I'm just specifying that they're minor and not major. Okay, really learn this stuff, because it's going to help you down the road with a lot of other things, and it's going to help you to reference a lot of stuff that we're going to get into when we get into modes and jazz and stuff like that.